believe that we're live. Hello and good evening. My name is Chris Palmer with chrispalmer.org. This is a weekly mastermind. It probably might get moved to the intersection. However, I will be breaking down or going through a masterclass to share with you the concepts of AI SEO or AIO, GEO, whatever people are calling it now, right? We're trying to optimize. For instance, these particular concepts that I'll be sharing with you led to 1,200 leads in the real estate market every 2 weeks. Some weeks were down. We were generating 1,200 plus leads every 2 weeks in the real estate motivated seller niche. On top of that, I know for a fact that understanding these concepts have led to multi-million-dollar truck accident law cases. I didn't do all the work, but putting the frameworks in place and understanding how each of these engines work was able to allow us to position the businesses to be able to get these, like get the leads, get these cases. It's been good. It took me a long time. I mean, even if you were in my mastermind, I don't know about the YouTube mastermind, but the other mastermind, I've been really a lot deeper in the last year. But even like the past 2 years, like I remember when the first OpenAI ChatGPT came out, like if you go back, like however many years, like I was like one of the first on it. I'm a nerd. In any case, I am Chris Palmer with chrispalmer.org. I'll share with you today the concepts that allowed us to scale thousands of leads bi-weekly in the motivated seller niche. Also led to tons. And I didn't want to be braggadocious, but I do believe that it led to a $23 million FedEx truck accident law case. I'm just saying, right? How did we do it? Understanding these concepts. How did we do it? Putting a plan into action once I understood all the concepts. Now, there's been some new stuff that has came out, but I've been studying, of course. And unlike some, maybe my spelling might be a little off, but unlike some, no teleprompters, straight out of the nugget, because I am going to share with you my expertise in AI. In any case, I am Chris Palmer. We'll go ahead and get into this. I'm going to do it on the whiteboard. Bear in mind some of the spelling, but no teleprompters, just straight information. Hopefully I can break it down in a way that is easy for you to understand. Because once you understand the core concepts or the core frameworks of each of these companies, and I'll basically cover all the major ones like Perplexity, Claude, Antropic, Gemini or Google, of course. Claude, I think maybe I mentioned that one already. I'll cover each of those systems, and we could start if you want with Perplexity. All right. Now I know it's starting to lose some steam, but each of these concepts will build on top of each other, and I'll share this with you. So Perplexity, here we'll do it this way. All right. So Perplexity, here we're going to utilize green, right? Because I believe their colors are green. All right. Again, this is meant to be a mastermind, so I'm going to take my time, explain each of the concepts. And I hope that you enjoy this. All right. So Perplexity. And I'm going to share with you my understanding. All right. So here we are. So Perplexity. Okay. So Perplexity utilizes a system that a lot of the different companies utilize. We're really talking about 5. All right. The 5 main companies. I know there's a lot of offshoots and, there's all kinds of stuff. But I'm talking about the 5 core companies that a lot of people know, at least people like us, right? Perplexity, underneath, because we're talking about a framework, because we're business owners. We care about getting leads and sales. We care about our brands and our futures. What do we have to pass to our kids, right? Can I keep my employees check flowing? If you want to be able to pay your employees, pay yourself, and have something maybe to pass in your family, these concepts need to be understood, right? I talked to a lot of SEO, like guys that I talked to a year ago, 2 years ago, they're jumping out. I mean, they're going to PPC, and some people are completely getting out of the digital realm. But if you want to stay in this market and you're doing business in this market, or you're a business owner of any sort, you need to know this information, all right? I'll quit yapping. Perplexity. So we're going to talk about the frameworks of Perplexity. You know, when each of these are a query engine, right? We're querying, some call this prompting, and if you stay with me until the end, I'll share with you how a lot of these experts are potentially getting it wrong, not all, but they're getting it wrong because we are in a unique time right now because we have the ability to prompt, right? And what I mean by prompt is I'm able to feed the engines because they're still figuring out ways to consolidate vectors and embeddings and make it faster with less hallucinations. That's the whole game. Whoever can get the information the fastest, right, with the least amount of hallucinations is the big dog. And I hate to break it to you, but it's Google. But we'll keep going, all right? So Perplexity, when we're looking at a framework of how they understand, this system is called RAG, okay? R-A-G. Let's fix this up. I am a SEO expert, not a whiteboard expert. I think that's clear. All right, let's go here. R-A-G, all right? And Chris, that's nice, right? It's RAG. Hopefully you can see this properly. Let me double verify that it's written. Yeah, not the best writing, Chris, but stick with me. I think you'll enjoy this. Okay. Hold up. Are you connected? Okay, good. Okay, just making sure. RAG, all right? What does RAG stand for? Because in order to understand how these work, this is a core concept that needs to be understood. This is called retrieval, okay? Bear with my spelling it just to go with it. It helps me as I explain, right? Retrieval, augmented, okay? Generation, all right? So retrieval, augmented generation. Now that sounds like a big fancy word, right? It does. I mean, especially when I first learned about these things, these concepts, I was like, well, what does this mean? Right? Because again, we're trying to get to the core of everything. So this is a core framework, and it's called RAG for short, and then to throw even more confusion into the mix, they say, hey, this is retrieval, augmented generation. Well, what does this mean? Well, retrieval, I mean, this goes without saying, right? I'm retrieving something, but augmented is an interesting word because that actually means big, right? Scaled, okay? So this is retrieving large generations. Well, what would be a generative? What would be a generation? Well, how about I have a query and I have an answer. So RAG is the core framework that Perplexity utilizes, and it's the underlying concept or framework that all the companies utilize, all right? Bear with me, we'll keep going here. So RAG, retrieval, augmented generation or generative, right? Generation, my mistake, all right? So this is very, very interesting. This is the core concept here. The next element that I want to break down for you, all right, or the next company. Now that we have this core piece of information, we know what each of these mean. It means that we're retrieving from a very large vector set, so we can actually then share it with whoever is querying the database, right? Now, I want to share this with you, okay? I wanted to share this. You know, I talked to a client. They were watching like videos and they were wildly confused, and I said, hey, I'll break this down. And I tried to do it the other day, but I had company over, so I had to run. But today's that day. I'll break this down. This will be for the mastermind. I'll probably consolidate this and trim up the video so it's a lot cleaner and more concise. But that'll be all right. So back to the core concept here. So RAG, all right? Let's get this so we can actually use it. So this is going to be, okay, R, A, G, okay? Now there's actually a problem with this, all right? What that problem is what I just mentioned to you. The problem is there's two things, there's two issues, and this is what all the companies want to solve, because remember, he or she that holds the data or wields the data and can retrieve it the fastest, the most, for the cheapest, that's the winner, okay? And each of these companies are, and be able to actually give the generation or give it to the querier, right, with the least amount of hallucinations. The best data, the fastest, and the cheapest. Gee, have you ever heard this before? Right? High value, low cost. I want to give the best product for the best price. When value exceeds cost, that's called a sale. You ever hear me? You remember this? It's the same concept for this company, all right? Or companies that utilize this framework. See, the problem with this, though, is that RAG, it takes a lot of time. Time equals what? Resources, okay? Time is resource. So that's a large problem. On top of that, this is relatively slow. It's very slow. It takes a lot of time to regain everything, or to crawl everything, or to retrieve everything. And lastly, here's the worst part, is that these types of systems that are still utilizing this, remember we started with perplexity. I started with the worst first, okay? Companies that utilize this type of framework without any specialties, without anything added on top, and we're going to keep going on here, but I want to outline these frameworks here. RAG takes a lot of time, it's very slow, and on top of that, there's a lot of what is called hallucinations. I won't even try to spell that one out, but you get the point. Now, once everything is retrieved, there's another step, okay? Or there's another framework that is utilized in order to give a query or a result to a query. And I'll discuss that. These are the core concepts, starting with perplexity, and we'll go through them all. I'll break it down for you. Ending with Google the best, and then I'll give you some tips that you can actually take into the marketplace so you can start getting leads and sales, how this all works. But I'm going to bring it all together for you, don't you worry. All right? Here's the next aspect that I want to give to you. All right? So remember, we have a core framework. Every company is built on this framework. Now, of course, our boys over there at Google, the Dundadas, as I like to say, okay? These guys aren't messing around. I'm switching over to black. I hope you don't mind. All right. So, we have RAG. We talked about what that means. Now, in order to give, if there's a person, right, we're just using a person with a business, or I have a query. In order, this is going to go and get everything, right, and retrieve it. But in order for this to cost less and be able to have the lowest amount of hallucination and to be able to scale this infinitely at the cheapest price, they use something that is called ANN. All right? And what this is augmented, I believe, nearest neighbor. Okay? Also, there's another aspect of this. It's called scaNN. So this is scalable nearest neighbor. All right? But let's just break this down a little bit better, or consolidate this. Let's just call this similarity. Let's try this one out here. Similarity-based retrieval. Okay? Similarity-based retrieval. All right? And this is going to be utilizing something that is called nearest neighbor. Again, I'll bring it all together for you. Just bear with me here. But you need to understand every core concept, every framework, how it all works together. Once you understand that, your eyes will be wildly open. You may know this information. Most people I talk to, I would assume maybe not. But hopefully you do. Nearest neighbor. Okay? Nearest neighbor is how we can get a lower amount of hallucinations and a higher quality answer to a query. Okay? Now, how this is done is very, very simple. Well, it's simple to draw out. What they're going to do is they're going to take all, let's just say that each of these lines account for a web page, all right? Or some type of embedding. A piece that will go into a database. All of these things will be brought together, okay, into one, okay? Everything that's similar and how they retrieve stuff online is wildly different. You know, like OpenAI, or better yet, let's just stay with Perplexity. They're going to be utilizing citations that are online, all right? They'll also be using vector databases. There's a lot of vector databases out there. You have no idea. Like, how do they know if a business is a business? Well, where is it listed? How do, you know, I won't get into that, but this is what they're doing here for similarity-based retrieval, all right? They're taking all of these different nodes and making it into one. Now, in order to be able to put it into one, though, there has to be a data set. There has to be a standard, a template. And we'll get into that as we go forward. Let's move on. I want to talk about the companies first. Let's talk about Claude. Now, this one gets a lot of attention. And the reason that I think, in my opinion, why this gets a lot of attention is not because it's superior or that they do anything special, because they are using the system that is RAG, R-A-G. They're not using a special type of retrieval system. No, they're not. I mean, they're not Google. They're not using multivectoral retrieval. They're not OpenAI that's using, you know, like augmented retrieval or generation of any sort. There's nothing special. They're not Antropic that's using a contextual retrieval. No, they're not doing anything special on top. All right? Claude, why I believe that this will have a lot of interest, especially amongst folks like us, right, in this space, is because they allow you to do so much. There's so much flexibility. They allow you to manipulate the system any way you want. Like, there's no rules. There's no barriers. Like, it's a lot more flexible than a lot of the other companies. And I think, in my opinion, this is why it gets a lot of visibility, especially in the SEO market. But by no stretch of the imagination would this be a more superior tool, in my opinion. Okay? There's nothing that they're doing that is special, at least in the mode of ranking or showing up or how they're retrieving something or how they're storing information or how they're giving out information or how fast they do it. Nah. They're not doing it. But as far as what they have, which is based on RAG, which is slow, old, clunky, you know, it was cool a year ago. But what they have, yes, they'll allow you to utilize it with maximum flexibility. Great. I digress. All right. So again, Claude is using RAG, but they're all based upon what is called nearest neighbor. This is how, whatever the query is, the nearest neighbor, we're going to talk about embeddings and how you would sort or become the nearest neighbor. Nearest neighbor means at the top of the list, by the way. All right. Let's move on to the next company, Meta. I want to break down each of the companies. Once you understand how their systems work, all right, and I'm trying to explain it in the most simplest way I possibly can, all right? Once you understand how the systems works, then you'll understand how to optimize for those systems. Now, I'm saving the best my favorite for last because they utilize all the different frameworks, but with a unique twist because it's Google, okay? And Google, in my opinion, is going to continue to dominate. There might be some runner-ups, but Google, in my opinion, is going to continue to dominate. So me understanding the most about Google, that's where I focus my attention, okay? Now, Meta is a very unique animal, all right? Now, as you know, almost every single company uses a form of RAG, right? This is retrieval augmented generation, all right? I'm not writing that out. However, what they did is they actually created their own variation called refrag, I believe is what they call it. It's either re-rag or refrag. I think it's refrag. And what's great about this is they've rethought, right? They're very innovative. They're just not creative. They're like, let's it's a revised RAG system. Innovative, not creative. At least not with names. But in any case, why would Meta, and again, we're still building on top of what is called retrieval augmented generation, and then these embeddings or these vectors are going to be sorted utilizing nearest neighbor, okay? That's how you get your answer. Like whoever has the most embeddings is the winner, right? At the end of the day. With that being said, refrag, why would they spend money, time, and resource other than, they're a little bit different, but why would they do this? Because remember, at the end of the day, they're trying to solve basically three things. Speed, right? Quality of result, low. They want low amounts of what is called hallucinations. Like they want to know when they're serving an answer. Because remember, the logic or the hallucinations can tie into other types of applications, not just query retrieval. But what if you're utilizing this system to do customer support or tickets or your emails or who knows, whatever you decide to utilize it for. Speed, quality, an amount of money in order to stay on top. How much does it cost to produce a higher quality result? Speed, quality, and dollars, but at the end of the day, this is simply just RAG, right? That's utilizing what is called cosine similarity. Okay, this cosine similarity is just a better way of doing AND. Okay, augmented nearest neighbor. Okay, and then we talked about scalable nearest neighbor. This is a way to do it even faster. These are separate frameworks that have individual purposes. Okay, so you're with me so far here? We have RAG. Right now we have refrag, and all they're trying to accomplish by doing this is speed, quality, and dollars. Bear with me, we'll get to the SEO part, but I'm breaking down each of these concepts for you so you can understand a little bit better. Okay? So remember, RAG, okay? What are we doing? We're retrieving a large data set in order to generate an answer. Okay, RAG. There's another framework that's built within. They work parallel to one another. And this system is ANN. This is old school. All right? And at the end of the day, this is nearest neighbor. A more advanced version is what is called scaNN. This is scalable nearest neighbor. But let's not forget that this is nearest neighbor. Okay? Nearest neighbor just means which one of these things are the closest to our initial set, to our gauge, to our, what do they call this? Doesn't matter. Like in order to set the main template for what they're going to look for, this is going to be called, maybe this is why you use a teleprompter, huh? What do they call that? You have a test, you have a, when we're running a test, like when we're testing, say, maps tactics, or I'm testing SEO tactics or strategies, you'll have your test. I forget what they call that. It might come to me. But in order to have something that's going to be similar, engineer man has to at least set the standard, the gauge. There's a name for it, but what is that called? Yeah, so when you're testing something, you need to have the, let me think what it's called. I want to know this. Let me see if it'll pop up into my mind. Let's see here. It's not the gauge, it's the, shite. What is it called here? I guess it doesn't matter. Moving on. All right, so we talked about this. Let's move into another company here. All right. So let's talk about Antropic. They're pretty fun. They got some stuff going on. Antropic. Now again, let's not be fooled here. They are utilizing a variation of what is called RAG, right? However, they put something on top in order to solve those three issues. Remember? Speed, dollars, and quality of result. So they do something that is called contextual. All right? Augmented generation. Okay? Contextual. I could explain this with my own understandings, but I don't want to get too far in the weeds. The only thing you need to know is that they're only trying to solve one of three things. All right? Speed, quality, and how much money did it cost to get those answers. All right? Now, Antropic has something special, and I think that's why they're starting to take off a little bit better. But at the end of the day, it's still based on a very simple system. All right? So that would mean that the quality of the answer just can't be. You know, they're not innovating that. They're looking for other ways. And what I care about is showing up and having my businesses that I work with show up higher and show up in more places, be more visible. That's what I care about. So that's why it's understanding this will be very helpful. Let's move on to OpenAI. Okay? Now, OpenAI has a lot of little offshoots. And yes, not a fan of Sammy, right? But here's what they do, or here's what they utilize. And of course, they have ChatGPT, amongst many other things. They have these embeddings, APIs, they have all kinds of cool stuff going on, right? They're pretty cool. But they are still utilizing a slow, non-cost-effective way of generating vector sets or embeddings. All right? Now, they are sorting with what is called cosine similarity. Okay? So they are using cosine similarity, which is going to be nearest neighbor. So which one of these things will look the same based upon our... Oh, what do they call that? Let's go over here and see. Maybe you guys cheer in. Good morning, boss. Hey, what's up, Doom? Doom, D-E-R... What would you call this? Doom Trooper. Dude, remember Doom? It says Doom, but doesn't that look like the Wolfenstein guy for your logo there? Or your avatar? It's good to see you. Yep. No other... What do they call this? It's not the gauge. What do they call that when you're testing? You have a... It's almost like... It's like a standard. It's a set. What do they call this? In scientific testing, putting two factors against each other, you first need a what to gauge the answer, right? I can't, I'm trying to conceptualize. Baseline, the standard. Yeah, baseline is one of the words, but that's not what it is. But we could call it a baseline. Scientific method, hypothesis, yeah, that's good. Baseline is one of them, but oh man, I see it in the patents all the time. It'll drive me nuts. Anyway, moving forward. Still, nothing special here. Let's get to the good part, right? I just checked online to see what the heck was it called. We can call it a baseline. I like that. We'll call it a baseline. Why not? Moving forward. Now, let's talk about Big G, all right? Now, Big G, all right? For Big Google, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a crown, all right? So this is going to be Google, all right? So Google, being the dumb data that they are, and I'm sure you saw this pretty recently, they had a weird name. It's like multi-vectoral retrieval, but let's see here. Movera, all right? Now, I do believe that they give names like this to drive you completely insane, right? So let's break this down very simply. Movera, so moo, right? Multi, I'm not going to write it out. Multi-vectoral, right? Retrieval, you with me so far? Multi-vector. This is the retrieval, you with me? And this is going to be for dimensional encodings. Where do they get this from? What does this even mean? So the last part is going to be the most interesting, okay? It might only be the RA. Either way. Here's why this is the most important, or at least the most interesting, all right? So here's what we're doing. So they're still going to go and get a bunch of information, right? But what makes Google great, multi-vectoral, means that each of these elements, we'll call them vectors, all right? Now, we are all very on top of the content, or text, right? Contextual. So this here will be text, but this is a vector, okay? Text, audio, video, image, PDF, but these are going to be the four cores, okay? Text, audio, video, and image, the worst image. These are what is called vectors. Okay? All right. So what Google and why they're so unique is they're able to actually take each of these vectors together and mush them together. And this is called fixed dimensional encoding. They're going to take all of this, all of these different vectors based upon a query, and they're going to make it one. All right? It's one. So when Joey, we're just going to say Joey, has said query, all right, whatever is the most similar, okay, is going to be the result. Now, how do they determine what is most similar in these fixed dimensional encodings? Now, how do you decide what is actually similar? And this is where the juice is, right? So if we know that fixed dimensional encoding, which is relatively advanced, right? And I could go deeper into this, but I'm trying to keep this as simple as I can. But if we're using fixed dimensional encodings, meaning that we're going to take our multi-vectors, we're going to make it into one vector. So when Joey has a query and they call the database, how do they determine what's going to actually show up and be at the top? And and here's where the juice is. I'm going to give you that right now. All right? So you understand the multivectoral retrieval. You understand the vectors now, right? You understand how they're going to go and retrieve them, right? And you understand that they're going to put it all together based upon nearest neighbor, things that are going to be the same. Now, you'll watch others, and they'll tell you, they'll give you all kinds of fluff. Go and get best of links, go get on listicles, go and do this and that. We'll talk about that moving forward, but here let's digress. So when we have this giant vector, all right, we took our 4 vector types. I'm just utilizing 4. There's many others, and we wanted to put it into one using fixed dimensional encoding, right? When we want to put this into one, how do we determine what's going to be at the top or retrieved most often? Like, what is the most similar? Well, they utilize a system called MIPS. Very interesting name. MIPS, right? Now, our friends, MIPS. So here, MIPS. We have maximum. Oh, inner product search. It lost me for a moment. Here, let me take a look at something here. Okay. I was trying to do it without notes, but it's impossible, right? I brought up my little list here so then we could share a little bit smoother here, so that way during editing it won't drive me nuts. So all right, so MIPS, our good old friends here at MIPS, maximum inner product search. Okay. What this is going to utilize is a built-in system, because the S here, there's MIP. A lot of the systems utilize this framework in order to help sort, to have a much higher quality answer. However, these solvers, okay, this is how they determine who is going to be the most similar or what they need to be similar to. Now, as time progresses and as I master this better, it will be a lot smoother in explanation. However, this being only my second presentation of this, hopefully as I talk about this more with clients and as I dive in, I'll be able to explain it way smoother. But you get the basic point here. We understand RAG now. We understand cosine similarity. We understand AND, right? So cosine similarity, similarity-based retrieval. We understand how multivectoral retrieval works, right? Alongside of that, we also learned which systems actually will determine what's going to be served as a query, right? Or better yet, if we have all the vectors, here's another way of explaining it. If we have our image, we have video, we have audio, whatever else, text if you want, When we're bringing these together, MIP, when they're taking all of this and putting it into one, all right, this is going to determine which ones make it into one. Well, when we're talking about nearest neighbor, what makes it into one fixed dimensional encoding is he or she that has the most embeddings from wherever they're pulling from. Okay? So, you know, I watched a video. I was just curious, like what people were saying, and there was only, I forget which video it was, but the guy he didn't have any explanation, but he said people need to build a bigger business or a better business, and that's probably the best way of explanation, because the person that's going to be similar to the winner is the person that has the most citations or the most embeddings online. Now, those embeddings need to be created in a magnitude of different ways. Now, one of the ways that I found to be very quick, kind of like in the local market, you know, in the local market, you have what is called data aggregation submission or local data aggregators. Well, those local data aggregators are also going to be vector databases. Okay? Vector databases are, well, exactly what they are. Pieces of information in one warehouse, right? Now, these vector databases, kind of like when you're doing your business aggregation submissions, I'm able to tap into all of the databases all at once. And it's like with 4 or 5 little placements, right? Well, there's other databases that work very similar to your local data aggregation submissions. For instance, if I wanted to be considered an author, right? An author holds a lot of weight. That's an entity. There's an entity ID that's associated with authors, okay? Now, when you're an author, how does the world or these machines know that that's a book, that that's other than the ISBN and all of this? But what database would an author show up on? Well, Library of Congress, okay? Weird name, it sounds like it would be like a law or something. But this is just one example of a vector database that would explain to a robot that, hey, this book, this person, this is listed on this vector database. And there's vector databases for every element of every entity. They've been tracking entities for a very long period of time. Anything that has an entity, there is a database associated with it. Okay? And that's the ticket. So there's multiple ways of doing it. We're looking for vector databases. Okay? And I want to show you something. Here, come on over here. Let me show you something. Let me point something out to you. Hello from India. Hello, sir. Let me show you this. Okay. Now you can spend time here. I want to prove an example. You know, a lot of people will spend a lot of dollars and a lot of time and a lot of effort on listicles, right? This is one tactic that is overcomplicated and overcharged for, right? And the reason why it's overcharged for is lack of information. However, here, let me make this example for you. So if I look up, who is Chris Palmer SEO's daughter, we'll say, okay? I don't know, how about have a daughter? I do have a puppy too. All right, so here's a premium example, a premier example of why companies would say, hey, you need to pay extra money for the most authoritative resources, right? Now I'm just using myself as an example, but I could show you examples for real estate investors, for law firms. And the example that I'm trying to make here is when I look up this particular query, right? I prompted this query. See, people would look at this prompt and say, okay, it was cited on these authoritative assets. I need to go and buy those assets, right? But here's the rub. Here's the point I'm trying to make to you. This piece of information, right? Yes, they're pulling it up, and right here they're showing LinkedIn, and then this is some guy that was lost. He was getting big national coverage. But at no time anywhere except for on my website did I ever mention my daughter's name, right? They'll put authoritative resource and say, okay, yep, it was cited here. No, it wasn't. That was one of the most authoritative assets that I might have said daughter, but I never said her name, I never said her age, I never said anything. I only said that on my site because I was figuring out the system. And this is how they're getting over on business owners. They'll say it, or each of the tools, like whether it's Ahrefs, whether it's SEMrush. Oh, here's the prompt, here's the sources. You got to build these sources. No, you don't. It's reverse. It's reverse, actually. Yes, I want a authoritative resource to say whatever the prompt is, right? That's a cite. That's a citation. He who has the most, or she, who has the most of citations, regardless of authority, is who is going to be the most similar, right? You with me? Remember multivectoral retrieval? Remember how they sort when they're utilizing MIPS? When they're sorting the answer to figure out the nearest neighbor. The nearest neighbor is a person that has the most amount of mentions related to a query type, to break it down or to boil it down simply. And just because you're seeing authoritative resource doesn't mean that I need to go build those, but I do need to have the answer online, right, we'll say, for each of those query types. Because the person that has the most answers, regardless of where they're housed, and regardless of how authoritative they're housed at, right, it could be on PBNs. Like, if I go and say, if I went out here and said, hey, Chris Palmer is the #1 SEO expert on 1,000 different sites, as long as they kept getting indexed, I guarantee you I can make it say whatever I want. It's gospel when you repeat it consistently and persistently, but as long as I can put it on one authoritative asset, you can make these engines say whatever you want. It's about the amount of times that you say it. All right, you with me? Now, remember, vector databases. Here, I'll point something out to you. Each aspect that makes up a person, all right, and Google has their own knowledge graph. Google has their own way of chronologically putting entities and associating a entity ID to each of them. That's their concept. Each company has their own concept of how they understand information and how they give it back to us, right? But a much simpler way, or a way to figure out which databases they're querying, is go take a look at Wikidata. When you look at Wikidata, it's not that Wikidata matters, but it's giving you a chronological list of vector databases that all these big companies are querying. Yes, some of the companies are going to take one database, Google, one index. That's one index. That's a textual index. There's other pieces there too. Yes, they'll take that into account. But all the other data, or all the other data and vector databases, are chronologically listed. You can go take a look at Wikidata. There's tons of them. So every aspect that's an entity has a vector database associated to it. And not only do I want to show up on as many places as possible, let's just say I wanted to be truck accident lawyer, right? Let's say I want to win truck accident lawyer. Well, the top person that I'm competing with has how many citations, or how many times have they been cited online, right? In order to win that primary query. Well, you figure out, let's just say that this person right here is #1. They've been cited on 300 places, authoritative or not. Okay, well, what did they say? What were those prompts? What different variations of saying the same thing How many of them do they have? Okay, well, once we identify that, we can then repeat that with free sites if you wanted to. The next aspect of this particular understanding, let's just say I want to be a truck accident lawyer. I understand the citations. You can create these, but I don't have to pay Forbes. I don't have to be on a listicle that costs $1,000. I can create those citations as long as I know the prompt anywhere I want. Okay? The next aspect of it is, well, how would they know, right? This is the number one, here, I'll give you, let's use example. Car accident lawyer, let's go to a big city, Houston. All right? Competitive market, competitive niche, right? Let's take a look here. Premium example, Jim Adler, he perfect, right? Now, is Jim number one, right? Because he's the best and he's been around for a long time, which he has. Or has he been cited in a lot of different vector databases and showing up in multiple vectors related to being a car accident lawyer in this great state of Texas? Like, does he have the most instances of saying that he's a car lawyer in multiple vector types and listed in multiple databases? Yeah, of course, right? Here, I'll give you this. Watch this. How much do you want to bet? Here, watch this. I'll show you something. Like, how do they know he's the man? How do they know his name? How do they know where he's from? Here, check this out. I'll show you something here. I could be wrong on this person, but I'll find you an example. Yo. I got lucky, right? I thought it would take me a few, but I knew it was like, dude, there's no winners here. Let's break this down now. So each one of these instances, right, there's actually a database in order to collaborate or to corroborate, whatever that word is, to validate each of these aspects, right? So if there's actually human databases that would say, okay, this is Jim Adler, here's where he's from, here's where he was born. There's a database for every entity, believe me or not. Every entity, every single aspect that makes up a website, a person, a book, a flipping picture, there's databases associated to it. And this is what they're querying. And the more I can get on the databases, and remember, other websites are only one type of, we could call it a database, or a vector. It's only one vector type. Okay, you with me so far? Like for instance, here, take a look down here. So here, they're vectoring here, educated where, occupation is law. You with me so far? Each of these, their date of birth, there's a reference here. All I'm getting at is there's databases for every aspect of the business. This person here, I don't mean to harp on this one person, but like it's not an accident. They have the most amount, they're the most similar for this particular query type, for this prompt, all right? They have the most amount of listings in these database vectors, and on top of that, they are the most similar to the test, to the gauge, to the baseline. They have, one of the ways is video, all right? Now, video is very powerful, a great way to affect the vector. Why? Because there's a lot of things that happen with video, right? What happens is you have images, like even Google does it, or Google or YouTube. Like if you go look under developer tools, under a YouTube video, yes, they share the thumbnail, but did you know that they break down every video into small pictures? Right? Why? Well, they have OCR, there's other elements going on, but that's stored somewhere. That has either made it into the overall database or it hasn't. But they don't just break it down for no reason. They might say forward-facing, hey, this is for security. We want to make sure there's nothing in the background, but everything's data, okay? Anyway, there's images. The next aspect is, of course, there's video, right? And video is also unique. Why? It's just like audio. Audio, Google wanted to have more context to the content so bad they made their own ontology to be able to chronologically order audio files. They came up with the schema themselves. They're the ones that said, yeah, you know what, I think we want to take all that information too. So they made the standard. They made it's called an ontology. They created it. They came up with it. And there's a database. You can go and check it. That's another vector database. Do you show up on it? I'm just saying. This is an interesting one. Video also has a transcript. Oh man, transcripts. They hit. See, and that's why people, they want to take the shortcut, the fastest, the easiest, the cheapest. Of course. But this is only one vector type, but it answers each of the sub-vectors, right? Because I can get my images, because they break down a video. I'm just talking about Google and YouTube, right? But they'll break down this into photos. So now I'm in the image. I'm in that. I have that vector, right? Like I show up more times. Now I have images. On top of that, I have the video. On top of that, there's context and there's text and there's a transcript. So now I'm in the contextual. You with me? So there's more instances of me talking about whatever the prompt is. Like me, I talk about local SEO and SEO and I'm a mastermind and whatever. I have tons of embeddings online, right? It's similarity-based. It's nearest neighbor. Whoever has the most citations online, regardless of authority, that's the winner. But understanding which vectors affect, or it's called MIPS, right? I told you this. I didn't tell you. I mentioned this to you, okay? Like when they're taking each of the multi-vectors and they make it into one cosine similarity, they're utilizing it. That's what Google does. And they make it into one. How do they determine? Well, whoever has the most entries, that's how they determine who the winner is. So that's your goal moving forward as a business owner. Video is video. Audio. There's images, video, audio, and text. It hits, and that's why people want to take this shortcut, because it hits them all. They couldn't figure out why it's the most important. They don't have an answer, but they just see the outcome and they're like, oh, let's make more videos. They don't grasp why though. But this is why. Because I'm able to affect the overall database. That's why. When it comes down to being the nearest neighbor, I'm force feeding it. Well, get this. Well, what do you do next? Well, Google is building on top of their systems that they utilize. And sometimes they give you little hacks, right? So what did YouTube do to help us even more? Well, think about when you have a video and it's on YT, what do they allow you to have? Automatic RSS feed podcast. And remember, why would they want that information? Because the person that has all of the data is the king. Well, they wanted the audio so bad they made their own ontology. Right? They're like, this is the ontology. Here's how. Well, why do they want ontology? Because you can't query anything unless it's in a database, and it needs to have an ontology in order to do this, right? In layman terms. So they'll allow you to make this podcast. So you take that feed, I have a podcast, and now what happens? Well, I have audio, I have my image that I share, I have my cover art, I have the back end, I have an RSS feed. You with me? So now we've covered 3 ways of influencing your rankings that I don't think there's anyone that's explained it in this manner or has understand it yet, other than like I've watched non-SEO people, of course. Like when I was breaking down each of the concepts, like over the last 6 months, 8 months, trying to win, while breaking down those concepts, like I've heard people, they're not SEOs though, like they're developers, and they understand how the principles and the concepts work. But I haven't seen any SEOs put all the pieces together yet. But I'm giving it to you guys. So I'm sure some will talk about this in this manner now. But here, so far, we want to be the most similar. It's all cosine similarity. It's all similarity-based, right? Similarity-based means inside of a vector, the person that has the most amount is the winner, right? Now, so far, what did we cover? Well, we covered ways to start influencing one of the vectors, which is video. We also talked about ways of influencing what is called our audio. We also talked about ways to influence the text, right? text is a vector. That's a database type. That's getting queried. That's one element of multi-vectoral retrieval. See, the reason why they want to do multi-vectors is because it produces less hallucinations, right? They want to, if Joey is looking for the best truck lawyer, right? Like, yeah, being listed on Forbes and, GitHub or wherever the heck you guys are buying these links from, that was cool 6 months ago, and that might work. But they need now, with this type of retrieval system, with this type of querying, with this type of system, when they're going to take all the vectors, they're going to mash them into one, and then they're going to have MIPS decide, okay, well, which ones do we want to serve? Well, it's the only ones that are going to be the most similar in nearest neighbor are the ones that have been mentioned the most amount of times. And that's how you'll get your SERPs. We're talking about Google here, all right? So I can't just go and get these listings. That's one aspect. But I can accomplish the same goal by doing this. All right, we're going to talk about text right now. All right? See, I won't tell you the market, right? But let's say I want to win truck lawyer, right? And two, here's another way of understanding this. You see, if I look up truck accident lawyer, car accident lawyer, or let's just keep it the same. I look up a truck accident lawyer in Hawaii. I look up a truck accident lawyer nationally. I look up a truck accident lawyer in Florida. If I were to pull that into Ahrefs or SEMrush, what will they give you? Or any of these tools, they all work the same way. They have a prompt, right? And then they'll say, oh, it was cited at these sources. And everyone's doing it wrong. They're chasing these sources. Nah, we're chasing the prompts. Like, what is being determined as a entity type to support? Where's the context? Because remember, all the companies want to do is lower the amount of hallucination. They want to have the best answer, the fastest they can for the cheapest price, right? Well, let's keep going here. So you figure out these, and if you want to know why doing this backwards is wrong, is if I look up the number one person, they might have 24,000 sources, right? I look up the number 2 person, they only have 320, right? And that's why I made a video not too long ago, like, not all sources and not all prompts are equal, right? Like, if it's not a high commercial intent, I don't want it. If it can't lead to a potential conversion, then it's not what we need. If it's in Google's instance, if it doesn't have a site link, it's not what I need. So we're looking for, okay, what are all the sources? Better yet, what are all the prompts? Oh, better yet, what are all the prompts that produce a high commercial intent, higher conversion rate? Okay, well, these prompts, for instance, this is just an example. Top rated car lawyer, best car lawyer, plus brand, of course. 24,000 different variations or prompts. Well, what if I took all these variations and put them into a spinner, and then I put them on my PBN network of 6,000 websites? And then on top of that, let's just say, better yet, why don't we spin it one more time, and then we issue it out in GSA to 240,000 different websites that allow me to post a blog comment. Because I don't care about the referring domain. I care that it's been cited. Because the system is changing. It's not about overall referring domains anymore. They're past that. Right? They're looking at, okay, what was being said and how many times. He who has the same thing said about them in different ways, the most amount of times, that's the winner. In the AI game. But there's another aspect. And this is where it gets a little murky, and this is where it gets tough. Because I'm giving you the play to win the AI game. Right? Like, okay, I'm going to be visible. But that doesn't mean you're going to be the ranker. Like, yes, I have the highest probability based upon the way they're retrieving, the way they're understanding information. I show up the most. I have the highest probability. However, there's still fundamentals of SEO, right? One of the biggest is this right here. Time to first bite. All right? Time to first bite. Now, not only for AI does my speed need to be, not only, Google rewards speed, but why? Forward facing, they'll tell you, for the customer. But remember, it's business. The reason why fast, and this is one aspect, the reason why fast is so much more important is, yeah, customer maybe. But remember, their job is to get the most information as fast as they can without hallucinations for cheap, right? So why would assets, let's just say PBNs on HTML cloud pages, why would they be getting so much visibility, and why can I get so many cited sources on them? Is it because it's such great content and it's such authoritative websites? No! It's because it's fast. How many bytes or how much information they're able to gather is one of the aspects. Because remember, we're talking about traditional aspects of SEO now, right? We'll dive more into how vectors work and influencing vectors in AI search. Like, that's the game, right? We explained that. But now we're talking about traditional SEO because I can do all the AI stuff. I could affect cosine similarity and nearest neighbor, and I can understand vectors and how they work and how I can influence them, right? I can even know how to scale it cheap and fast, right? It took me months to figure that out. And I even give you examples. Like, they don't care, and they just make up data. Like, I'm not going to chase sources when Google can't even get it right. Like you saw, I've never said my daughter's age or her anything except for on my own website. And then they said, oh, it was listed on LinkedIn. Oh, it wasn't. Right? But that's what I'm getting at here. All right? Let's get back to the traditional aspects of SEO, though. Because this is why I'll talk with business owners, even law firms, or the law firm agency that I work with. And they're starting to grasp these concepts because we've had big wins, right? But there's still traditional elements of SEO that you still need to have in order to still be a winner. First and foremost, speed is a big one. Now, next, and the most important, is age. Now, age isn't, remember, there's multiple reasons why age would be a factor. But yes, it's because consistency over time. Consistency for a long period of time is how you build a true authority. Brands take 10 years generally speaking, right? If you're consistent for a long period of time, you're now a brand. So age, consistency, yes, is definitely a trust factor. But could it also mean that there's been way more instances, sites, online talking about said brand? And that's why these two play together. So, and then there's page age. So not only has this person been around for a very long period of time, and they have the most citations, hopefully they're fast, but they also, the page is the oldest. It may even be considered the gauge, the baseline. There's a word for that. Oh, it'll drive me crazy. It came up again. When we're testing pages, you have your baseline. What's the other word for a baseline? The test, the standard, the baseline. They have a... slipped my mind. I don't know why. In any case, I'm going to give you a few more, and then we're going to call it for now. And we'll talk about this again, and I'll give more examples as we move forward throughout the rest of this year. I was I spent a lot of time understanding and affecting. I had some big projects come up. I even shut down my main mastermind, but it's back open. You can go to seomastermind.org, get on the list. I'm looking to get 20 people total. So sign up, fill out the information, and I hope, I would love to have you in the mastermind. But like I was working on 2 very large projects. On top of that, like we were very deep in understanding these processes. There was a lot of failures along the way too, right? In any case, we talked about the speed. These are some of the more high impact areas, all right? So speed or time to first byte. In fact, I don't recall what they call. I'm not really sure what they call it, but time to first byte in vector retrieval. Let me see here. TTFB for multi-vector retrieval is what? What do they call that? It is time to first byte from a website speed. But what do they call this? Latency, but it's time to first, they had another name. Maybe it was time to first, I forget what they call it. But it was like time to first, it was something else. It was that last one. I can't think of it. But in any case, were they able to retrieve all of the information very, very quickly? All right? I was looking on the computer. I don't know if I shared that or not. I was looking for the answer. Oh yeah, you see it. Oh, you guys can ask whatever questions you want. So time to first byte. But it's really, was it TTFP or TT? Time to first, maybe it was TTFB, but it stands for something else. I just don't recall at this time. Age is another huge factor. We're talking about traditional aspects that, hey, I could get all the AI SEO stuff correct, right? Like I understand how to influence vectors. I know what vectors are. I know how they're analyzing them. I also know how they're sorting them. Cool. But these traditional aspects of SEO, age, how fast the asset is, right? Like if you're not even fast, there's no way you're going to be similar to a winner, right? And their data set, I talked to business owners, I talked to a business owner of understanding the SEO, and they're like, Chris, yeah, but the leading competitors are running at 4 seconds. I'm running at 3. Yeah, but you're looking, if Google is making a nearest neighbor, right, they're not looking at 10 search results. They're looking at their entire vector database, right? So if it's nearest neighbor to be a winner or to be the winner for a particular query, you're looking at 10 results. They're looking at 10 million results, right? Okay. Age. Here's another aspect. See, when we're talking about ranking, especially inside the SERP, if you care about this, right, which you should, this is another aspect of it. Because if Google's not rewarding, there's no asset more authoritative than yourself, right? Like a lot of the information that the big companies are winning these overviews with and showing up in ChatGPT and showing up in all these places, they said it about themselves first. And then you repeat it online and in vector databases in order to make it gospel. Okay? But the other aspect when ranking, talking about traditional, is going to be the category of your links. Category. And this can't be any more pronounced. I'm seeing people now, right? This is like, they've put so much emphasis on AI and advancing that. Like, it's like they've turned off the gauges or the switches for their old ranking mechanisms. Like, yes, links are still a factor, but but I think AI is running it. And here's what's interesting. Like say I knew a car lawyer, right? Like I've seen this in huge markets, and you can look at some of the car accident lawyers. They do the same with real estate investors. What they'll do now, because AI is running the show now, and remember, we're still talking about traditional aspects that will help you rank. But here, look at this. They have said page, right? On their website, they want to rank for car law, right? Car lawyer plus city. And they might be in a lot of different cities. What they'll do is they'll go out here and get legal. And remember, a site is not only determined based upon the content that's on the site. That's one aspect to the context of the overall site. But what really determines what this site is about in a traditional SEO sense is the link graph of referring domains. What category are they in, right? Think about AdSense and how they pay you, right? How does Google pay you? Well, first and foremost, they pay you differently based upon the category of your website. There's a classification element. Well, this is the same classification element that's utilized for their link graph, right? So your site is not only just about what you say it's about. That's one aspect. The other aspect is, do I have referring domains from other legal sites? Well, once I have a site that's talking about said legal, and then also on top of that, it's illegal as far as referring domains or external votes. But now I have this site, and I can build links to one site, 300 backlinks from a legal site with varying anchor text. But wait a minute, is the anchor text not prompts that my competition has? You with me so far? I'm seeing this working exceptionally well. They're taking the prompting and they're citing it online, but they're also the internal links is what you say about yourself. They're taking those prompt types and utilizing it to manipulate search rankings by buying legal domains that have referring domains that are legal and talking about legal. This is a legal site, maximizing backlinks, internal link flow to pages, but making them more relevant by passing internal. This isn't just internal. This is an external link coming in. It's one referring domain, but these are backlinks going to every page. But those backlinks, the anchor text isn't, car accident lawyer Fort Lauderdale. No. They're very long tail queries. Just so happens to be the same prompts that have been cited online. You with me? Great. All right, that's it for today. Can't give you all the game, right? Let's see what you guys have. I know it's late. It's hot as heck in here. That's okay. End of the day. It's been busy lately. I've had some other projects. A few projects have came down to a boil. Resorted a few things internally too, as well. Personal life and business. So it's just been busy, and there's seasons in life. Just at a different season, that's all. So let's take a peek together. You have anything? Let's see here. What do they call that? It's not the baseline, it's not the gauge, it's the standard, it's the, what the heck do they call this? You're testing it against the, just can't think of it. Oh well, it's all good. Let's see here. Okie dokie. Let's see if you have anything. All right. S-A-I Charan. I don't want to butcher your name. Good to see you, brother. Hello from India. Hello from Philadelphia. Working as a local SEO specialist at a startup. It's been 7 months, but I haven't seen much growth or creativity. What skills should I learn to increase my salary? Well, you want to actually increase your salary? Figure out every small and minimal task. If you're working for someone else, what I would do is learn as many small tasks that you can that take workload off of either the owner or other workers, right? Until you have so many tasks that you're doing that you're irreplaceable, because it's only been 7 months. As time progresses, right? I don't know if it's a small team or a large team, but as time progresses, if it's a medium team or a small team, like what's better? Increasing the salary and giving a higher position to somebody that's already tried, true, and loyal? or hiring someone else and spending those time and that resource, they might not work out, right? So if you can make yourself irreplaceable, it could just be simpler tasks. It doesn't have to be a big new task. It could just be doing a more efficient, better job of everyone else around you. So take on more work so you're irreplaceable, and the opportunity will come that you having a salary increase is better than hiring somebody new. That would be one of my pieces of advice. The next piece of advice would be, and it's kind of what we chatted about here, multi-vector retrieval, being able to win in the future is the person that has the most amount of citations online. Citations are not just contextual. Citations are images. Can you create images? Can you share on image sites? Can you share PDFs? Anything that's an image has an entity ID. Can I, in multiple ways, can I do images? I don't know. How about video? Video has multiple ways to affect cosine similarity. Or multivectoral retrieval with MIPS. Hey, it's up to you. Can you create a podcast? Do you know how to use 11 Labs to take the blog article and then create audio that can then be a podcast so I can share it online to show up in even more vector types? I don't know. So I would start looking at the different vectors. For lack of better words, I'm trying to explain. Basically, can you do podcast? 11 Labs is a way that you can take the content that's already there, spit out the content, and then you can transcribe it with, say, Grok. So now I have text, that's citations that are online, that are authoritative, that will get picked up, saying the same words over and over again, aka the prompts, the query strings that are important to your brand, business, or service. So podcasts, video. How about long-form books? You know, nothing would make you the perceived expert like being listed on the Library of Congress with a book that says, I'm an SEO expert. Or better yet, a truck accident lawyer. Like, think about this. There's a lawyer out there, and yes, it's a law SEO. But do we think that they're the best law SEO? And yes, they spend a lot of money on ads, but they were first with the books to say, hey, law SEO expert. Well, then, of course, poof, you're up at the top. You with me? So I'm just saying, so books are another great way. Can you be a publisher? How about apps? Can you make a small app? Can you launch an application? Well, why would that be good? Well, programmer is an entity type. There is vector databases for that. There's content about that. That would be a value add. Plus, winners, didn't you ever notice that big winners with big sites, with big budgets, they generally have an app, even if it's something simple, right? And this goes into being very similar with the winners for whatever the query is. Like if all the winners have an app, you should have an app, right? Image, video, audio, application, development. What else? There's probably tons. And then I would say potentially, you know, because businesses don't always want long game. And it's hard for a business owner to conceptualize creating a podcast when they're selling hair extension, right? But it's not because you care about a podcast or you want to talk to people or nothing. It's that I want to influence the engines. That's why. I explain this to business owners every day, except for Sunday. Like, you're not creating videos because you want to make videos and you want to spend a bunch of money and time. Nah, like, I just need a yes and an account. And the reason why is because right now is prompt season. All these systems are making mistakes, but remember, they're taking all of the vectors, putting them into one pile, and then that's how they query out. Well, how much longer do you think it's going to take before they already have the answers and they have a different system? Well, I want to be one of the first, like whatever industry you're in. Now is the time to start cranking out as much, it doesn't even matter the quality, as much as you possibly can. And that would be my advice to you, brother. Position yourself to produce more, that you show up in more vectors so you can actually start ranking and being a winner in the future in every engine, no matter what. Also, voice search was a piece I forgot to mention. That has an ontology associated to it, like I mentioned. Let's move forward. Hey, bro. What's up? From Germany, huh? Wow. How's Germany, man? I hope it's fun. I hope you're having a good time. It's great to see you, brother. Oh, you speaking about Wiki. I told you last about it. See, yes, you did mention that last time. Yes, sir. Yes, you did. That's perfect. Wonderful to hear. I assure you, though. Yes, you did mention it. Nice to see you here. Yeah. That's the reason why I love Wiki. And I mentioned this a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, in my mastermind to my members. The reason why this is such a enlightening platform isn't because it has any ranking ability or anything powerful, but it's that it chronologically and systematically, in order, lists every database that all the AIs and all the systems are utilizing in order to the unseen citations. They're in a list there, right? So that's why I really like that platform. I love it a lot because there's all your vector databases. Like, yeah, they might leverage some of the content and some of these sites, but who are they going to trust more? The Library of Congress or Forbes? It's a no-brainer, dude. But yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, man. Yeah, we figured that out. Dude, I figured that out like 2 years ago, and we became millionaires in the real estate market. Just to be honest. That's it. That's the truth. That's funny. Just selling leads, man. But yeah, I mean, I think I will have the permission to be able to show some of those case studies. Not once we sell the primary asset, then I'll start sharing some of that stuff with you guys and gals. But yeah, I think like 2 years ago, once we started, we were making music. We were being artists. We were being publishers, authors. Like, we were spreading everywhere. We were doing the images, the RSS. Dude, we were cranking once we figured that system out. And then when the helpful content happened, we realized that that's when they turned on full AI, and the traditional aspects of SEO were turned down. And that's when we started really cranking as far as making images and PDFs and songs. Insanity, I know. Audiobooks. We also made books, applications, all kinds of stuff in order to be sorry, I had a message. Let's keep going. First, content painful. No. Those are no. I was what I think you're mentioning is when you're looking at a test, right? You have your variable or your set. There's a name for it. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but you're looking at it's like the baseline. Like, does this go past the baseline? There's a name for it. But thank you for your input, though. Crypto White Hat Ripple News. I love that name. Where do you see local search after AGI? Like, will there be opportunities for marketers to offer these services by 2030? Dude, that's so hard to say. That's pretty, 4 years from now. I think there's always going to be an opportunity. And, people started getting out of SEO and marketing this entire time. And I've watched several people that kept going, regardless of whatever the change is, and made adaptations, right? They adapted to the change. Saw opportunity, and ran with it. So as long as you're not in a negative mindset or that negative space and you can see opportunity and capitalize, I think you'll be fine as a marketer. So don't be doubtful. Yes, it's listed in the database. Yeah, that's right. Unseen citations, true, yes. That's why I like it too. Yep, that's right, bro. It's not hidden, but yes. Yep, I know, bro. I know. We're big, yeah. I don't know any like major like business owners I talk to have no idea about these things. Like they're still, like yes, they're focused on, like they think ChatGPT is to answer their emails, and that's one instance of it, and it's cool. That's cool. But yeah, but you start talking about vector databases and being able to show up in vector databases, and we need to create a bunch of images so we can start influencing rank. They're like, why? It's hard to show them, conceptualize, especially when I'm charging dollars and taking a lot of time. Meanwhile, it's nothing they can see. Selling SEO is hard enough, right? Because you can't see it. You can only see the result. You can't see work. That's why I started offering deliverable based. Like, okay, here, now it's a fair exchange. Because most of the time, humans, don't have the patience to reach success, right? A lot do, don't get me wrong. But yeah, SEO takes a lot of time, and I'm selling something that's invisible, right? So that's why I started doing, that was the main reason why I did deliverable based to begin with. Now when we start moving into influencing AI, and there's all these relatively large concepts, and then you have the big companies out there saying one thing, right? And they have people running around with their heads chopped off. Meanwhile, I'm out making blog comments, answering every query, and we're winning all types of very high competition markets for very high competition key terms, $80 keyword clicks. So, yeah, I love you guys. You have a great rest of your day. I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. I'm going to lay it down. I'm tired. Little Chris gets out early tomorrow. So, yeah, it's going to be a short day, so I want to get my rest. I love you guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. As time progresses, I'll have more information. It will be a lot more fluid, but I haven't seen any SEOs, on YouTube at least, speaking about these aspects of AI SEO or GEO or AIO in this manner. But no, there you go. Now you have. I love you guys. See you in the next one. Bye-bye. Well, and dude, crypto, you saw how Google did Reddit, right? They came in, there was a big deal. Yeah, they gave them a lift, but they just went in there and snatched all that data. I don't know, though. Like, these are powers to be that are way outside of my realm, right? Way outside my pay grade.